My family thought it'd be hilarious to dump me in another state like I was some kind of test case. Let's see if he can find his way back, they said, laughing as they sped off. Well, I didn't. I never came back. 14 years passed before they managed to track me down. 108 missed calls later. That summer, when I turned 23, wasn't supposed to be anything special. Same routine, working at my dad's hardware store for garbage pay, crashing at home because college wasn't feasible according to the banks, my old man, and every excuse in the book. Oh, and let's not forget being the resident punching bag for my golden boy brother, Tyler. We weren't flat out broke, but vacations to Disney? That wasn't our scene. So when Dad suddenly announced we were going on a family road trip to Uncle Frank's wedding in Colorado, something felt off. 3 days in and I was already kicking myself for not faking a flu or something. My dad and Tyler had been going back and forth playing their favorite pastime, tormenting me. Mom, her name's Donna, would every now and then mutter a half-hearted, "That's enough," but it never meant anything. Just noise. To understand what happened, you need to understand my family. Calvin, that's my dad, wasn't just your average jerk of a father. He was the kind of man who'd yank you out of bed at 3 in the morning to yell about some chore you didn't finish or chuck your stuff in the trash if it was left out. The guy had been drilling into my head that I was worthless since I was old enough to string a sentence together. Tyler caught on quick. You either mirrored Dad's every move or ended up like me. Take a wild guess which route he picked. That morning, we pulled into some no-name rest stop in Colorado, middle of absolutely nowhere. Just empty fields, distant mountains, and a sad excuse for a bathroom building with a couple vending machines. I'd been passed out in the back seat of our green Suburban and needed to stretch my legs. Use the restroom. Dad and Tyler were laughing over something dumb, and Mom was checking her reflection in the visor like we were headed to prom. I still remember exactly what I had on: faded Metallica tee, ripped jeans with a busted knee, and a pair of beat-up Vans that were practically falling apart. I left my phone in the car, it was charging. Didn't grab my wallet either? Why would I? We were in the middle of nowhere and I was just stepping away to pee. 10 minutes. Maybe less. That's how long I was in that bathroom. When I stepped back outside, blinking into the bright Colorado sun, the parking space where our Suburban had been was empty. Gone. At first, I thought maybe they just moved it as some stupid prank. I circled the entire rest stop. Nothing. And here's the thing about being betrayed by your own flesh and blood, it hits in a way nothing else ever could. I sat on the curb for a full hour, convincing myself they were messing with me. That they'd swing back around. Other travelers came and went, some stared. A few asked questions. A trucker even checked in on me. Asked if I was okay. I lied, told him I was waiting on my girlfriend who was inside. He nodded and drove off. But by the second hour, that cold, sinking feeling set in. They weren't coming back. My first reaction? Try to borrow a phone, call them, plead with them to come get me. But just as I was about to ask this mom with 2 kids for help, something stopped me. A lifetime of memories hit me all at once. Every cheap laugh they ever got at my expense, every moment they humiliated me. All the jokes that were just cruelty in disguise. I could hear them in my head. Tyler's voice, bet he's crying already. Dad saying if he's not as dumb as he looks, he'll figure it out. And Mom's weak little sigh, pretending like she ever had a spine. So I made a choice. I walked up to that mom and asked if I could borrow her phone. But I didn't call my family. Instead, I dialed information and got the number for the closest shelter in Grand Junction, 40 miles away. Then I turned to her and asked if she could possibly give me a ride into town. Told her my family had to leave for an emergency, but someone would be picking me up later. She looked hesitant, but I must have seemed harmless enough because she said yes. That first night at the shelter was a brutal wake-up call. I had absolutely nothing but the clothes I was wearing. No ID. No money. No one to call. Ron, the guy running the place, let me use the shelter's computer. I managed to pull up the wedding invite and get Uncle Frank's address. For a moment, I thought about going there, maybe crash the wedding, confront my so-called family. But then I just stared at the screen and thought, what for? Why chase after the same people who laughed while leaving me behind? Instead, I created a new email. Started researching how to replace lost ID. Looked up jobs that paid under the table. Started building a plan. 2 days later, I was washing dishes at a diner called Sonny's. The owner was Maxine, mid-60s, gray hair with purple streaks, covered in tattoos, and didn't take crap from anyone. I walked in, asked if she needed help. Told her my wallet had been stolen, but I was looking for honest work. She looked me over and said, "Dishwasher quit yesterday. You steal, you're dead. Start now." Rock bottom has a strange way of showing you what you're really made of. That week, I worked double shifts, slept at the shelter, wore whatever donated clothes fit. Ron helped me start the paperwork for a new ID through Vital Records back in my home state. With the little cash I earned, I bought a cheap pay-as-you-go phone from Walmart. Exactly 7 days after they left me behind, the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was my mom. Her voice was trembling, asking where I was, if I was okay, saying they'd been searching everywhere. Yeah, right? They claimed it was just a joke. Complete nonsense. Said they waited 20 minutes down the road and came back, but couldn't find me. Even more nonsense. I could hear the panic in her voice. The fake concern. And behind her, my dad's voice, telling her to tell me to stop being dramatic and just get to Uncle Frank's. Tyler was laughing like it was all hilarious. Leo, are you there? Please, say something. We've been worried sick. That sick feeling in my gut? Gone. Replaced by something clearer. You wanted to know if I could survive on my own? I said. My voice had never felt that steady around them before. Well, watch me. I ended the call. Blocked the number. Then I went through and blocked every number I could remember from them. Just to be sure, I walked into a Verizon store the next day and changed my number entirely. Before I did, the old phone showed 28 missed calls. I imagined their faces, how angry they must have been realizing I wasn't coming back to be their punching bag. 1 month later, I had a studio apartment, tiny place above a laundromat. Always smelled like dryer sheets and detergent. But it was mine. I'd worked my way up to prep cook at Sonny's. Maxine was showing me the ropes, how to chop onions without taking off a fingertip. Every now and then, I'd peek into the email account my family still had access to. Messages were piling up. From Mom, please come home. We're so sorry. From Dad, this childish stunt needs to end. From Tyler, dude, it was just a joke. Stop being such a pussy. I never replied. Not once. That's the thing about finally tasting freedom. Once you've had even a small bite of it, there's no going back to the cage you came from. And no, I'm not gonna pretend like it was some easy road. There were nights I'd sit scrolling through Instagram, seeing pictures of happy families, ones that actually cared about each other. And yeah, it stung. A dull, deep ache that no amount of screw them could numb. I had nights where the loneliness felt like it was going to drown me whole. Holidays were brutal. But every single morning, I woke up in that tiny apartment that always smelled like downy sheets and dryer lint, headed off to a dishwashing job where no one called me useless and just kept building a life for myself, one brick at a time. 3 months after they left me standing in that Colorado rest stop, I logged into my email one final time. There it was, one last message from my mom. Your grandmother keeps asking about you. Please, just let us know you're okay. I stared at it. Then I closed the tab, deleted the account, and walked out back behind Sonny's and tossed my old SIM card into the dumpster like it was cursed. That same night, Maxine taught me how to make her signature apple pie from scratch. Told me I had good hands for pastry. That simple comment, it was the first genuine compliment I'd heard in what felt like forever. And after that, I never looked back. First real update? 5 years after they left me at that roadside bathroom, I was scrolling through Facebook when a familiar face popped up. Not because I was still doom scrolling their profiles. Okay, maybe I was. But it happened because Tyler got tagged in a local news article from back home. He'd been arrested. DUI. Smashed his car into a telephone pole. Lucky for him, only the pole suffered. They ran it with his old high school football photo, all smug and polished. Right above a bloated, hungover-looking mugshot. That's karma for you. She might take her sweet time, but she never forgets a damn thing. By then, I'd built something decent for myself in Colorado. Upgraded from that suffocating studio above the laundromat to a small one-bedroom with real windows and a door that didn't stick. I'd climbed my way up at Sonny's from dishwasher to line cook to assistant manager. Maxine still ruled the place with her mix of sarcasm and powdered sugar, but she started treating me more like some weird honorary nephew than just the kid who walked in off the street. The first thing I bought with real savings? A laptop. Nothing fancy. Just solid enough to take community college classes online. I signed up for business courses. Management. Intro to accounting. The very things my dad used to sneer at and call busy work for people who couldn't hack it. My days were all about routine. Morning shift at Sonny's. Afternoon classes. Evening shift. Rinse, repeat. And no, I wasn't magically healed. Not even close. The damage was still there. Trust didn't come easy. Hell, it didn't even come medium rare. My friendships were basically limited to 2 people. My neighbor Trevor, who played bass in a god-awful garage band and brewed home beer that tasted like floral dishwater. And Maxine, if she counted as a friend and not just my grumpy boss with a soft spot. Then came Naomi. She started coming into Sonny's like clockwork every Tuesday and Thursday. Always ordered the same thing, a Denver omelet with no tomatoes, extra coffee. Always sat at the counter with a textbook open. I later found out it was med school material. She had this funny habit of zoning out completely while reading. Fork frozen midair, forgotten. Once, I timed her 7 minutes and 24 seconds holding a bite of cold eggs before snapping out of it. 4 months of coffee refills later, she finally looked up and actually saw me. Like, really saw me. Her first words? "Hey, your name tag's spelled wrong." It wasn't. But that became our inside joke. After that, every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd wear a new wrong name. She'd spot it. I'd act surprised. Stupidest flirting known to man, but somehow it worked. Our first date wasn't even supposed to be a date. Her study group canceled last minute, but she still had a reservation at Antonio's, a pizza place that's near impossible to get into. I was wiping down the counter when she got the cancellation text. Next thing I knew, we were sitting across from each other, both of us awkwardly realizing, yep, this is totally a date. 6 months later, she moved into my place. A year after that, we found a slightly bigger apartment. Nothing special, just 2 bedrooms, a working toilet, and neighbors who didn't treat 2 a.m. like prime concert time. Meanwhile, I kept lurking on my family's pages using fake accounts. Yeah, not proud of it, but I did. Dad's hardware store started tanking after a Home Depot popped up across town. I'd see his angry rants on local Facebook groups getting more unhinged by the week. Mom's page turned into some twisted shrine to family. She'd post throwback photos of us smiling, always captioned with "missing my boys," plural. Rich, right? She'd tag Tyler in everything but never mention me. It was like I'd been erased. Tyler was bouncing between jobs, pretending like every new gig was his big break. Passive-aggressive status updates about haters and new beginnings. Classic crash and burn routine. Then, about 3 years in, Maxine pulled me aside while we were doing inventory. Said she was thinking of opening a second Sonny's across town. Wanted to know if I'd be interested in running it. Not owning it, running it. That part was important. I didn't sleep that night. My brain kept spinning. This has to be a test. A joke. People like me don't get chances like that. That's the thing about emotional poison. Even when you escape the source, it lingers in your bloodstream for years. But I said yes. Because Naomi, half asleep with her hair in her eyes, mumbled, "You'd be an idiot not to." Because Trevor, high out of his mind, said, "Bro, you basically run this one already." Because Maxine wasn't Calvin. She wasn't my family. And she'd never once made me feel like I was less. 6 months later, Sonny's East opened its doors. It was smaller. Had a different menu. My menu. I put in 80-hour weeks that first year. Dropped 10 pounds I didn't have to lose. Argued with Naomi about never being around. Came home to passive-aggressive sticky notes more than I'd like to admit. But it worked. Customers came. Then they came back. The food was solid. The atmosphere felt right. We weren't raking in millions, but we were surviving. Thriving, even. For years after they left me in the middle of nowhere, I had enough saved up to help Naomi pay off some of her med school loans. Not all of them, they were monstrous. But I made a real dent. She cried when I showed her the payment receipt. Not the cute, movie-style crying either. I'm talking red-faced, nose-running, hiccuping kind of crying. And in that moment, I felt more like a real person than I ever had before. Then my grandmother passed. I found out through Facebook. My mom had posted this long, over-the-top tribute with a million heart emojis. Grandma Rose had been the only one who ever stood up to Calvin. The only person in that family who actually saw me. She used to slip me 20s and whisper, "Save this for your escape." I think she meant college. Turned out she meant life. I thought about going to the funeral. Looked up flights. Naomi offered to come hold my hand. Trevor said I could take his beat-up hatchback. Maxine? She just shrugged and said, "The dead don't know if you're there. Do what gives you peace." I didn't go. Instead, I sent flowers. Basic sympathy bouquet. I signed the card with just one word. Leo. No return address. No note. Social media exploded. My mom made posts about signs and messages from beyond. Tyler dropped cryptic comments about prodigal sons. Calvin didn't post anything, but I could only imagine the fury behind closed doors. A week later, I got a friend request from a name I didn't recognize. No posts. No friends. I almost ignored it. But there was a message attached. "Sal, it's Uncle Frank. Your mom gave me your old email, but it bounced. Are you okay? We're all worried. Your dad's been asking around." I blocked it. Didn't hesitate. That night, I had my first panic attack in over 2 years. Curled up on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., trying not to wake Naomi, feeling like my lungs were folding in on themselves. I kept picturing Calvin storming into Sunny's, ruining everything I'd built. An hour later, Naomi found me like that. She didn't ask questions. Just sat beside me, our shoulders touching. When I finally caught my breath, she looked at me and said something so simple it stuck. They can't take anything from you unless you hand it to them. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Asked about restraining orders just in case. Locked down every social media account I had. Asked Maxine to make sure no one gave out info about me, not to anyone. Control what you can. Exactly 5 years to the day after I was left behind, I married Naomi. Small state park wedding. Trevor was my best man. Maxine made the cake and sobbed the whole time, mascara trailing down her cheeks. Naomi's big, loud family wrapped their arms around me like I'd always been one of them. Her dad told dumb jokes that didn't make me flinch. Her mom hugged me without my guard going up. That's what a real family feels like. Sometimes the best ones find you after you've stopped searching. A week after the wedding, I was scrolling my dummy account late at night and saw it. A community post. From Calvin. Looking for information on my son Leo. Last seen in Grand Junction, Colorado. Family emergency. There was no emergency. That much I knew. What I didn't know was why, after 5 years of silence, they were suddenly looking for me. So I started digging. And I made another fake account. I joined a few community groups from my hometown and started piecing things together one post at a time. The old hardware store had shut down for good. Their house? In foreclosure. Mom had been making vague, cryptic posts about health issues, clearly fishing for sympathy without offering details. And Tyler? He'd moved back home after racking up his 3rd DUI. They weren't searching for me out of love or regret. They were looking because they needed something. And for the first time in 5 years, when I thought about them, I smiled. Not because I was glad to see them falling apart, but because something clicked. I didn't care anymore. I shut the laptop, climbed into bed next to Naomi, who was already fast asleep, and made up my mind. I keep watching from afar, not out of spite, not out of longing. But because sometimes the best kind of revenge isn't some dramatic act. It's what you build while they're busy tearing themselves down. Then came another update. It started with a ping from LinkedIn. 15 years after being left at that rest stop like garbage, the life I'd carefully rebuilt glitched. One name showed up. Viewed my profile 27 times in one day. Now, LinkedIn's a weird place. Recruiters do stuff like that all the time. But this wasn't just any name. It was Tyler Whitaker. My brother. That's the thing about the past, it's patient. It'll wait in the tall grass for years, just biding its time before it pounces. By that point, my life barely resembled what it had been during that first year in Grand Junction. Naomi had finished med school, completed her residency, and now worked 3 days a week at a local clinic so she could spend more time at home with the kids. Yeah, we had kids. Ava was 7, Jonah was 4. That cramped apartment above the laundromat? Long gone. We were living in a modest 4-bedroom house just outside of town. It wasn't flashy, but it had a little backyard where the kids could run around and I could plant tomatoes that never quite ripened the way I hoped. Sunny's had grown to 3 locations. Still not some chain empire, but enough that I didn't have to jump on the line unless someone called out. Maxine had semi-retired a couple years back, though she still popped in unannounced to nitpick how we were making her crusts. I thought I'd made peace with it all. The past. The silence. The loss. I still checked in on them once in a while, but not obsessively, maybe once every few months. Last I'd heard, Calvin and Donna had downsized to a small place after losing the house. Tyler had gotten married, divorced, and then somehow married again. It seemed like we'd all moved on. Until that LinkedIn alert hit me like a sucker punch. 15 years of radio silence, and now this? I brought it up to Naomi one Sunday night while we were folding laundry, half watching some show we were way behind on. She paused, holding 2 completely different socks in each hand, and asked me gently if I was okay. I told her I was fine. What else could I say? That I suddenly felt 22 again, stuck at that rest stop, hearing Calvin call me worthless in my head? 3 days later, I was at Sunny's East, helping out with inventory because, surprise, our supplier had sent the wrong kind of coffee filters. Again. Then Sky called from the front. Said there was some family here to see me. My first thought was Naomi's parents. They sometimes swung by if they were passing through. I headed up front, already switching into host mode, figuring out how to convince them to stay for dinner. But it wasn't Naomi's folks. It was them. Calvin looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Like the years had shaved down his edges. Donna had that worn-out look of someone who'd spent too long carrying the weight of things they never dealt with. Her hair was dyed this jarring shade of brown that didn't quite match her face anymore. And Tyler. Tyler looked like a reboot of Calvin at 40. Same posture. Same smug air. Taking up too much space like it was owed to him. There was a younger woman with them too, early 20s, I guessed. She hovered in the background, clearly unsure of whether she belonged in this moment. Nobody said a word. Even with the lunch crowd chattering in the background, it all faded into static. My ears filled with the sound of my own heartbeat. Calvin was the first to speak. Said my name soft like he wasn't sure it was really me. I nodded only because my voice had packed its bags and left. I'd imagined this moment probably 1,000 different ways over the years. In some versions, I laid into them with a speech so fiery it left them stunned. In others, I was cool, detached, too far gone to even flinch. And yeah, in a few embarrassing late-night fantasies, there were hugs and tears and apologies that fixed everything. But real life's messier than the versions we create in our heads. I motioned toward an empty booth near the corner. Told Sky to bring over some water. Sat down across from the people who had once been my whole world. They told me they found me through some local magazine write-up, Rocky Mountain Rising, a list of 10 local success stories. It wasn't even a main feature. Just a blurb and a photo of me standing in front of the original Sunnies. Apparently one of Mom's high school friends had moved to Colorado, saw it, and sent her a message, "Isn't this your son?" Mom brought up the 108 missed calls they'd left on my old number before it got shut off. Like keeping track was supposed to earn her some kind of redemption points. Then they all started talking at once. Mom went on about how worried they'd been. Calvin claimed I'd misunderstood what happened that day at the rest stop. Tyler tried to laugh, tried to act like we were just two long-lost brothers catching up after a few years apart. The young woman, turned out to be Tyler's second wife, Lila, just sat there, quiet, studying me like I was a puzzle she didn't have all the pieces for. I didn't interrupt. Just let them spin their version of the past where no one was the villain and everything could be chalked up to some big misunderstanding. I noticed little things, how Calvin kept scanning the place, probably doing mental math on what it might be worth. How Mom's hand shook just a little as she lifted her glass. How Tyler's fake charm flickered whenever he thought I wasn't watching him. When the noise died down, I asked the only question that mattered. Why now? That's when the truth started leaking out. Hesitant. Messy. Between long, awkward pauses. Calvin had heart issues. No insurance. Big medical bills piling up. The second house they moved into? That was being foreclosed on too. Tyler's latest business, some sketchy crypto nonsense, had crashed and burned. Mom needed knee surgery but didn't have the funds. They weren't there because they missed me. They were there because they needed money. I should have been furious. Should have told them to get lost. But instead, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. They looked so small. So worn down. These people who had once loomed so large in my life suddenly looked like nothing more than tired, broken-down souls trying to scrape by. I told them to come over for dinner that night. Said I needed time to talk it through with Naomi. They jumped at it. Calvin already acting like it was a done deal. That whole afternoon felt like I was dreaming. I picked Ava up from her dance class. Then helped Jonah get ready for his preschool show and tell. He'd chosen his glittery rock collection this time. While juggling all that, I was also texting Naomi, letting her know who was coming over for dinner. She offered to take the kids to her sister's place for the night. But I told her no. I wanted them here. I wanted my family to meet my real family. Dinner was chicken enchiladas. Nothing fancy, just an old El Paso box recipe I'd slowly tweaked over the years until it became something of my own. Ava set the table without being asked, placing the forks on the wrong side, until Naomi gently helped her adjust it. Jonah insisted on wearing his full Spider-Man costume because, according to him, Tuesdays were officially Spider-Man days now. When the doorbell finally rang, I nearly dropped the dish I was carrying to the table. Naomi brushed past me, gave my arm a quick squeeze, and whispered, "Whatever happens, I've got you." The kids looked up from their spots like they could feel something big was happening. That's the funny thing about those moments you've been dreading for years. They're never quite what you pictured. In some ways, they're worse. In others, they're easier than expected. The introductions were painfully awkward. Calvin kept calling Naomi Karen. No matter how many times he was corrected, Donna couldn't stop crying every time she looked at the kids, which completely freaked Jonah out. Tyler and Lila were tolerable. They at least tried to hold a normal conversation, though Tyler kept dropping vague hints about family looking out for each other. After dinner, Naomi took the kids upstairs for bath time and bedtime. She gave me a look over her shoulder that said loud and clear, "Text me if you need a rescue." Then it was just me, alone with them, sitting in a living room that suddenly felt too tight. That's when Calvin launched into his speech. Family sticks together. He always knew I'd turn out okay. Total lie. And of course, they just needed a little help. $20,000. Just a loan, of course. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt once. Then I asked him if he remembered what he said to me on my 18th birthday. He blinked at me, completely blank. So I reminded him, "At least you can't disappoint me anymore once you're not legally my problem." I turned to my mom and asked if she remembered what she did when Calvin threw away my community college acceptance letter. She didn't say a word, because the truth was, she'd done absolutely nothing. Then I looked at Tyler, asked if he remembered what he said to my first girlfriend when she stopped by the house looking for me. How he told her I was probably a faggot anyway. They all squirmed in their seats, stumbled over excuses. Calvin started to get that sharp edge in his voice, that tone he used to use that made me shrink when I was a kid. But not this time. I wasn't that kid anymore. I was 15 years and a whole damn lifetime away from him. I stood up, walked to my office, and came back with a plain envelope. Handed it to him. Inside was a check for $79.80. Calvin stared at it, baffled. Asked what the hell that was supposed to be. I looked him in the eye and told him, "In 2012, that's exactly what a Greyhound ticket from Grand Junction to our hometown cost. That's what it would have taken for me to come back after you left me there." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the shouting started. Calvin calling me ungrateful, selfish, a disappointment. It was like someone hit play on a mixtape of every toxic moment from my childhood. I didn't yell back, didn't defend myself, just stood up, calm as ever, and told them it was time to go. Mom switched tactics, tears, guilt trips. How could you do this to family? Tyler's fake nice guy routine disappeared. His face went hard, cold. Lila looked like she wanted to sink into the couch and disappear. Honestly, I felt kind of bad for her. When they finally left, Calvin crumpling the check and throwing it onto our front step, I closed the door behind them and leaned against it. My legs suddenly felt like jello. Naomi came downstairs a minute later, asked if I was all right. I nodded, but didn't trust myself to speak just yet. We cleaned up the dishes together, not saying much. Checked on the kids, both fast asleep. Got ready for bed like it was just another Tuesday night. Before setting the alarm, I pulled up the live feed from the front door camera on my phone. They were still out in the driveway, arguing. Calvin was waving his arms like a madman. Mom was crying. Tyler stood there, staring at our house. That look on his face, I recognized it instantly. Jealousy twisted up with rage. The same look he gave me when I first brought home a good grade. The same look when I laughed too loud or existed too brightly. Eventually, they climbed into their rental and drove off. I haven't seen them since. Haven't heard a word. And I don't expect to. That chapter is closed. Here's the truth about revenge. The best kind isn't something loud or messy. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's waking up to the sound of your daughter laughing at cartoons. It's your son wearing a Spider-Man mask at breakfast. It's your wife reaching across the table to steal your toast and smiling like you're the luckiest man alive. It's the little jokes, the lazy Sundays, the total absence of fear in your own home. I never made it back to the place I used to call home. I built a better one.